The commissioner hearing room needs unmuted. We can't hear anybody.
Uh-oh.
Thank you.
We need to start over. Okay.
Sorry.
Hello. Kathy Funk Baxter, Finance Manager. So I'm here today and Deborah's here as the Chair of the Finance Committee. A new fund was established in 2023 budget called the Budget Stabilization Fund. And the Finance Committee is recommending a policy be adopted to provide for the procedures and the restrictions on the fund so that we have documentation that also follows best practices for basically a rainy day fund. So some of the best practices that were utilized in developing this policy, 1% of annual general revenue fund would be utilized as the basis for the typical annual transfer. It's pretty easy to calculate. It's not significant to the overall revenue. And it is the same rate that's being used by the state for their rainy day fund. There would be a cap on the balance accumulation, which is consistent with best practices. They're anywhere between 5% and 15% of annual revenues utilized to limit excess balances. And then third, it would be used by the discretion of the Board of Commissioners, but typically for events deemed to be an emergency like natural disasters or in the event of slow economic growth, but with the ability to still maintain service levels and to maintain an adequate fund balance, reserve balance for the general fund during prolonged slow economic growth. And then finally, another best practice typically requires a majority of board to approve, typically supermajority, in our case 2/3. So those are some of the best practices surrounding rainy day funds. Also in the prior year, a budget transfer was approved for the during the 22 budget as a budget amendment, but the fund wasn't actually established until the 2023 budget. So therefore, I'm probably going to I'm going to ask for the board when I submit a budget amendment to be able to revise that transfer, reverse it, basically rebook it properly in the right year. So I'm recommending the commissioners allow us, the budget office, to place an agenda item on the board of commissioners for action to establish this policy. Are there any questions about?
Any questions on it?
Comments?
Yeah, we exchanged some things in email, and I'm not sure which ones were accepted or not accepted. And maybe if I've got a copy of the changes I suggested, but,
Okay.
or questions on the non-trivial ones. The first bullet that said under the Board of County Commissioners shall determine to expend the money in the fund only for the purpose or purposes specified below. And the first one says fund may shall be used, and I wanted that to be a may. So that one's good too. So it doesn't force the commissioners.
Right. I think that's perfectly acceptable to make that change.
Okay. And somewhere I wanted to see, and I know we talked about that a little bit, to access this fund, I would like it to require 100% of the board. It may be different if we are in a charter county and there are 6 or 7 council members. Maybe that would be different, but I think one of the reasons I supported the rainy day fund was because I believe rainy day funds are good things, and there are eventualities, typically like the act of God. I wasn't here when Mount St. Helens blew, but I imagine that caused a problem. And so I don't want the typical political recourse of accessing whatever funds are not nailed down to the floor. So I was thinking that 3 commissioners have to agree in order to access, to spend the funds.
I don't really have an issue with that other than if we have somebody on vacation and Mount St. Helens blew, then what happens?
Oh, those things, I think we already have policy issues where that we can call them, they can call in. And the question is if they die in office, or, you know, the plane doesn't land properly. I think we have methods for coping with that. So, for example, there is, if I remember correctly, in case 2 of the 3 commissioners get killed for some circumstance, the sole commissioner can act on behalf of the county, and something about other electeds get involved also. So it's just, I don't pretend to know all the rules. I just know we have that situation in other circumstances.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with it being unanimous vote of the board. I just don't want to, I'm trying to make sure I don't hamstring the county in an event of a real emergency if
Correct.
out
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the key. We want this for a real emergency, don't we?
Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely.
Not just for convenience.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm afraid of. It'll become a convenience if we don't really nail it down hard. And, you know, statements like unexpected revenue shortfall are really hard to define. What, you know, is that because the board made bad mistakes that they should have seen, or is that because Mount St. Helens blew?
Yeah.
So you're okay with that one?
I'm okay with unanimous. Well, I'm sure the public will have some input on that when it comes
Yeah.
to the.
I think that being the case, that actually handles a lot of other stuff or concerns that I had. And then just a question. I like the 1%. There is a cap on there, and do we have to have language in there that says in case it's 5% of a number that could go up, more than likely, but it could go down. And if we're at 5%, those kinds of sort of pathological things, I don't know that we need to discuss them, but.
No, right now, 5%, based upon current revenue, would be about 2.75 million.
Yeah, but next year, let's say things really go badly, and it should only be 2.5 then. Do we have to spend 250,000 or not? And I'm trying to pretend, as long as the prosecuting attorney is here, I have to show that I can think in a legal sense.
Well, I think the front page just shows the 5%. On the back, you gave yourself a little more leeway up to 15.
No, that was best practices.
That was,
Yeah,
okay.
so best practices say that the cap is anywhere from 5 to 15% in the research that was done. And Tracy and the rest of the finance committee did a lot of this research. So prior to my getting here, so I thank them for that. But I've seen some of the policies actually have a dollar amount, a set dollar amount. I looked at several for Washington cities. I remember one county, and they actually had a specific dollar amount, like $1 million for a very small city, I think it was $1 million. So you can have a dollar amount or you can have a percentage.
Is there any way to easily word that so we don't fall into that situation where we have to spend down?
It
I
would be
just-
something like spending down is only the result of an emergency, or, you know, something like that.
Well,
Yeah. Deborah.
each year when we look at that 1% for the budget and then we go to transfer it, maybe we could say something to the effect of, you know, at the time of the transfer, because if we don't need 5%, if we're already at 5% for, if we're looking at that year, then we wouldn't need to transfer 1%, but not have to bring it back down, you know, once we have it at a certain.
Yeah, I think you already have if you reach 5%, you have no obligation to take the 1%.
And maybe we could just word it to clarify that a little bit.
Yeah.
Better, yeah.
Okay. And
Because I was anticipating that exactly that when we're making these transfers, it's closer to the end of the year. We already have the results from the prior year. We know our fund balance results, and we know the previous year's revenue, which is the transfers based on. And so we can make that calculation to cancel or avoid that transfer.
And then there's a double-edged sword on the cap. What's the rationale behind having a cap?
I think it's to avoid excessive accumulation of funds that are not at your disposal to be able to utilize.
Yeah, but that's. Suppose our rainy day fund grew to be 100 million. We would be making interest off of that. So do we know where that interest will go?
Well, that might be something we need to put in here too, the interest would go to the
the
general
general
fund.
fund, yeah.
Yeah, but I would think if we had, you know, excess savings in here, you know, would be like, well, why are you collecting, you know, charging us for taxes?
That's why it's a double-edged sword. I think you know where I'm thinking. It's just like it's not a bad thing to save, and it's not a good thing to collect when you don't need it. I'm not sure how to reconcile those, but when I look at 5%, I compare that to 8%. I'm thinking 8% is prudent. 1 month reserve is just not adequate, and I think we're at like 3 months. Or we're at 2 months.
I think you,
Yeah, I actually calculated based upon last year, and our fund balance in total for the general fund is about 26% of our budgeted expenses, or 31% of our revenue. So we are well above the 2 months, which is general practice. So when I did my research, some are recommending 2 to 3 months reserve.
Yeah, and the way I'm trying to compare, if we think that like a 2 month reserve is reasonable, shouldn't the rainy day fund kind of reflect that also?
So
as a cap.
Yeah. Well, you actually have your rainy day fund, but you also have your general fund fund balance as well. So you really have both.
Right. Right. I understand that. I'm thinking just what I said. If I think it's prudent to have a reserve and a rainy day fund, then what size should the rainy day fund be? Well, it should be in my opinion, approximately equal to what you would consider a prudent reserve, which is 2 months. And that's about 16%.
Yes.
So I'd be inclined not to cap it at 5.
Maybe just word it to where it matches our reserve fund.
Well, except the reserve fund is huge right now, isn't it?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
right now you have,
Because
I
of
believe,
COVID.
right now I believe your policy says a 1 month is required, which is the 8%. Maybe an alternative is to say that the rainy day fund is 8%. So then together you have the 16%, the 2 months at any point in time.
I could live with that.
I'm happy with that. This is serious negotiations. I say 16, you say 8. Wait, that's not halfway in between. Is that fair? But don't make it 8.3. Make it either
Okay,
8 or
8.
9.
Okay, how about 9?
9 is good. I think that's all I had on that.
Commissioner, bring you up to speed on the front page. Right in here, we're changing that from shall be used to may be used. And you heard the conversation on the percentage.
In the first bullet.
First-
Yes, in the
yes.
first bullet.
So on the third bullet, I'm a little bit confused as to whether or not that can actually be enforceable. Because we can't artificially set limits on contract negotiations, from my understanding. And this would automatically be a limit in statute that might create some legal challenges. I absolutely understand the point we're trying to get at, but writing it down, I'm not sure is the right way to go, because, the statutes say we have to negotiate.
It struck me the same way, as well as the optics on it can be misinterpreted rather badly. But
Yeah. Suggest we probably run that by Doug.
I would probably strike it, but that's, I don't think,
Part of our union negotiations takes into account what we feel we have
yeah.
available for us to use.
And if it
This
takes,
just sort of waves a red flag, hey, keep looking to the
Yeah.
other side, so.
and if it takes 3 commissioners to access the money, I think that's what I mentioned. I think that handles a lot of issues.
So we all good if we strike that third bullet? We're good with
That's
that?
what I would do, is strike it.
Yep.
Would that
Yeah, let's do that.
seem reasonable?
And then we did change the first 5% to 9%. Okay. So I think I'm caught up.
Yeah, I don't remember where we came up with that bullet point. So like you said, if you have to, all 3 vote on it, then if that was what, that would help cover those types of decisions. So I would think we'd be okay with striking that.
You're okay with that, Kathy?
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Only other thing is that I will be doing a budget amendment, bringing that forward for public hearing and everything. I'd like to put that on the agenda. And I think I'm looking at a July date so that I can round up any other budget amendments that I need to do as well.
Sure.
So.
Any other questions on this?
No, I like it, and I'm very appreciative of the effort.
Okay. So
Kathy, you mentioned that your review of the ending fund balance said that rather than at the 16.3, which is 2 months, we're at Did you say 36 or 26?
Well, we projected when we prepared the budget for 2022 to be about 26% of expenses, but 31% of revenue on our general fund balance.
That's where they came from. Okay, 26.
So it's more than the 2 months.
Yeah.
And we actually favorably came in a little bit higher than what we had budgeted on our fund balance as well. So,
Yeah, a few more sales tax months like we had, we'll be in even
Yeah.
better shape.
mhm.
Along those lines, I've heard the doc recording fees are way down. Have you heard that?
I have not.
From whom did I hear that? Maybe the auditors online? I don't.
Well, we kind of did a little bit because the state appropriated some money to make up for what they figured. the
Oh, right,
shortfall
right,
was.
right,
I
right.
think that's where that comes from.
Yeah, and that of course was, well, we think you should have made $100. You actually only made 50, so we'll give you an additional 25.
Yeah.
And it will be even less money for Cowlitz County because this, at least the city of Longview is keeping their share that would normally come to us. And then
Oh,
I
yeah.
just read an article that Kelso is also thinking about keeping
Yeah,
their share. So
which actually for me, I think that's what I would do if I were they.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay.
And I'll be putting this on the, submitting it for board action to formally approve at a public meeting.
So if I remember correctly, I think we will be expecting some kind of a resolution or notification from the
Yes.
auditor that starts the whole process, starting July 1st, right?
For the budget, but for this policy,
Right,
yeah,
not
for this policy, what I researched is there's usually a board resolution to formally adopt a policy. So I'll be putting it on the agenda for the regular public meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
And this goes through a public hearing also?
I don't,
Formal
I think so.
public hearing.
I don't know. I'll research that.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Solid waste.
The most enlightening 15 minutes we're going to have all day.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard you guys talking about page by page and I'm going, no, that's not going to happen.
Did the prosecuting attorney speak to you?
I know they want an executive session.
Oh, that's executive session?
That's what I'm hearing. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Mike Moss, Public Services Director, along with Sean Rowe, Finance Manager for Public Works. Today, we're here to discuss the Solid Waste Management Plan review. Just a little bit background for you guys. This plan is required by Ecology, and it's right here in my hands. It's 230 some pages thick. I think you guys got a copy electronically. We printed one out to see you guys if you need to review it today in person or in hand, you can. The 2012 plan, our last plan, has expired. Actually expired in 2017. They have a shelf life of 5 years. So we started rewriting this plan. The process started in 2018. Unfortunately, it was a full rewrite. Back in 2012, we did not have the headquarters landfill. So we had to incorporate the headquarters landfill into the plan. And so this plan was developed through the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, but also with our third party Mall Foster Alonji. They were our consultant on this plan. It was reviewed by the Washington UTC, which is Utilities and Transportation Committee, Ecology. It had a SEPA, had public comment. It's been a lot of work put in this plan. All the cities have approved this plan earlier this year. So the final step for us is to come to you guys, review the plan, which we're going to do today, answer any questions, and at a later date, put it on a Tuesday agenda for a official approval at a public meeting. And then after we get done with that, we'll submit it to Ecology. So the main staff member that worked on this plan for the county was Ron Williams of Solid Waste Manager, our past Solid Waste Manager. Of course, he's no longer with us, but online with us today is Brian Tino, with Mall Foster Alonji. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you. Yeah, can everyone hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful.
So he worked a lot with the cities and like I said, SWAC to work on this plan. So he's the expert in the field on this. So I'll turn it over to him to give you a little background, maybe the highlights of the plan, and then have you guys ask any questions you have. If that's all right with you guys. Right. It's all yours, Brian.
Great, thank you so much. Yeah, and I think really nice job summarizing the process so far and the steps for approval and what we've done and what we have left. So I know it sounds like it's been dragging on for a bit, but we are really close to the finish line. So it's nice to see this get wrapped up soon, hopefully. So yeah, this is a requirement from Ecology to update the plan, or at least start the update process every 5 years. And the main piece there is just looking to capture any significant changes in the county's solid waste system from the previous plan update. And so a significant piece of that was looking at the capacity of the headquarters landfill, projections, for the lifespan and strategies to, really make that a asset for residents of the county. And part of Ecology's requirement is looking through a 20-year planning period with a specific 5-year implementation schedule. So taking you through from this plan update to the next update. So looking through, hitting the highlights, obviously the landfill changes were a significant piece. The acquisition of headquarters, its capacity, and changes to the previous landfills in the county. When we started this update in 2018, really at the start and then into the thick of all of the changes around recycling from China's policy. We're obviously still seeing the impacts of that, and a significant part of looking at this plan was capturing how those impacts specifically affected the county. Moving through, organics is another significant component. Looking through curbside collection and commercially generated yard waste are two major components there. Another big piece that was captured during this time frame was the acquisition from Waste Connections of the county's primary solid waste company. Nicely keeping the same name, so kind of smooth things there, but and no significant changes otherwise anticipated for services or facilities. So largely just folding into a larger corporation and hopefully nothing too significant on the ground for the county. And then, as was alluded to, just the overall formatting of the plan. Towards the beginning of the plan process, there was discussion with the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, Solid Waste Manager, and us to really look at creating a more modern and streamlined plan, getting something that would be easier to update going forward, meeting all of the current ecology requirements and anticipating some changes that would be coming down the line or that happened during the plan update, specifically Ecology's requirement for a contamination reduction and outreach plan or the crop, which was folded in as an appendix specifically related to recycling. So just really looking at an opportunity to advance this document for the county going forward. big picture as well, we talked about cities adopting the interlocal agreements. There's been no changes there. Those are all still in effect through this plan update and will remain in effect through the next update as well. And I think that's really the broad strokes there. So happy to answer any questions or discuss anything in more detail if that would be helpful.
Will consumers notice anything different, or do they have to change ways of doing things? I mean, are we putting more burdens? Does it put more burdens on people of our county, or?
No, that's what, really anticipating right on the ground for the county residents, that there's not going to be significant changes. There is just the obvious trickle down of the recycling specifically. But yeah, largely, curbside collection has not changed. And the facilities, the fact that the landfill really does have that capacity extending out, I think estimated through like 2080 or 82, something like that. So yeah, that it should continue to serve the county well.
And of course, your company guarantees that, right?
You got to take that up with my boss, I think.
See, well, I've been reading Department of Ecology got slapped by Supreme Court for overstepping bounds. Does that have any effect on us here with this?
I guess hard to say if there will be any long-term effects coming from that, but for this immediate term here, and specifically, this plan update, which is so close to being finalized and approved, there shouldn't be anything impacting the township, or sorry, the county right away. But yeah, again, I guess can't say for sure if there won't be longer lasting impacts coming from that.
I suppose if the Department of Ecology declared the settling ponds as wetlands, because the decision the chairman was talking about dealt with waters of the US issues on wetlands controlled by the federal government. So, but I wouldn't put it past him.
The waters
Actually, I should back up. I mean, they could have come down pretty heavy-handedly since we're over 10 years behind updating this plan, right? Yeah.
And
So-
I think a piece to add to the time frame here of the update, that it's not like this was happening in a vacuum. Ecology has been very involved in the planning process for a number of years now. And so it's not like there was the plan that expired and then this gap of time and then Ecology seeing a totally new document. Part of the delay in the overall plan update process was the fact that there were a number of different ecology permit managers cycling through this project. But for better or worse, it has seen numerous folks at Ecology provide input, reviewing. They have attended the Solid Waste Advisory Committee meetings, and so there was certainly a large degree of involvement. And they are well aware of the progress that's being made and the significant changes that were made in this plan update. So, yeah.
I did have a fairly skeptical impression of the plan, just simply because of all the changes that have happened in the 10-year. Did anybody ever look at the plan for guidance? Or was it just on a shelf, as most plans like this are? I mean, it seems like we had our own studies, we had our own, plans for making this transition, and I don't remember ever referring to a plan in the past. So I think because the answer was the plan was outdated.
There are certain sections that we'd go to with acceptable waste and like they said, the life of the landfill. There's certain things that we'd look through if they're recycling the organics, but you're right, on a day-to-day operation wise, there's not a document that we bring off the shelf on a daily basis and look at.
I heard him mentioned significant changes to the old one. When I take the time and review that document, will I be able to tell where there's significant? How do I know which one has been significantly changed?
I mean, I hope that in looking at the documents, if you were to compare them, you would see that it's not just a dusting off of the old one, slapping of new dates on there and packaging it up for an update. I mean, yeah, just, overall readability, structuring, graphics, trying to make it a slightly more approachable document for something that is 200, however many pages it is. The goal is that this is a resource for the county and for residents of the county. So, just kind of keeping that all in mind as we work through it. And then, obviously we provide input where we can, but largely the direction comes from the Solid Waste Advisory Committee. So looking at the goals and actions established in those meetings to meet the needs of the county, to, acknowledge what has been working and keep moving in that direction. And then if changes were needed, to identify opportunities there as well. So yeah, I mean, largely there's probably nothing too groundbreaking about the difference in these documents, but just taking the opportunity where it was to make it, like I said, more readable, approachable, just a nicer visual document, things like that.
Yeah. And I'll take your word for that. My number one thing is always impact to the citizens of this county. And so that's the type of things I look for. And now you're telling me that this really doesn't impact our regular citizens, other than it sounds like there may be some recycling things that they're going to ask. But that's the type of stuff I'll look through when I look through it. And so if there is impact to the citizens, it'd be helpful to me just to point them out to me, so I don't have to.
So probably the most challenging statement in your summary is on the first full paragraph at the end of the very first full paragraph on the second page, when it talks about the plan includes the county's crop, which is yet another plan, and identifies actions the county intends to take to reduce the amount of trash contamination in the recycling stream. The county created an implementation schedule outlining the time frame for completing each action. That almost by definition and by state mandate is going to require rates to go up, because we can't reduce the amount of recyclables. And it's so frustrating right now. We throw away most recyclables because nobody takes it. We can't do the glass. We can't do most plastics. I mean, it's all crazy. And the state is passing the rules that define what we have to do. So I think we would do our taxpayers, our ratepayers, a disservice if we didn't remind them that at the state's direction, there's going to be some changes in the way we handle recycling. And so I'm
Brian, could you maybe explain the crop a little bit more for everybody?
Of course, yeah. So I think, as I mentioned, that was finalized by Ecology in 2021 as a requirement for counties with, is it 20 or 25,000 people, somewhere in that range. So, for larger counties to prepare this separate plan. So counties that were, had a recent update in place kind of took this as a standalone effort. For Cowlitz, based on the timing, we were able to wrap this effort up with the overall plan update. And as I mentioned, include it as an appendix to the plan referenced in the recycling section. And so they provided a template for folks to use, and we opted to use portions of that, as well as crafting it specifically for the county. And largely what it involved was an accounting of current recycling levels, contamination metrics, just looking at the county's current recycling system. So that evaluation was really the largest piece of what was done and what the state was looking for. As we mentioned, there is that implementation schedule of the goals and actions and next steps. But largely the expectation there was just to outline the path forward and to start looking at what additional data may need to be collected and how feasible it is for the county to begin those data collection steps. And so it's not necessarily committing off the bat to next year, implementing some brand new recycling system to totally eliminate contamination with skyrocketing prices, but really just, looking at those next possible steps that the county feels are realistic to evaluate the problem and start making steps towards it.
Just a question. I'm not trying to be argumentative here. I appreciate all the work done in this, and I know we got to do it. But is this like building and planning rules? We don't have to adopt them, but we have to enforce them.
We don't get to adopt them all, but we have to enforce them. Yeah.
So what I'm saying, you don't really have a choice.
Did you want to take that one?
Well,
My
yeah, I
guys
mean,
I don't.
we work with Ecology along the way, as he said that.
Yeah, my
that really
favorite
helps a
agency
lot.
of all
So,
time.
on this particular one, it's really, as long as we're planning with them, I think they're allowing some allowances along the way. Does that help?
I know the answer to it. I just throwing it out there because it seems funny. They would bring it to us and we're supposed to adopt this, but it really has very little impact because they're going to enforce it whether we adopt it or not. They're my all-time favorite agency, by the way.
So as we collect solid municipal waste from other counties, more rural counties that don't necessarily have the population to justify this cropping, will we then be doubly punished because we're accepting those unstandard, or am I missing something here? Which could likely be the case.
And from my understanding, and Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, is that this plan addresses our county solid waste, not anything that we bring in a commercial venue front to the landfill itself. This is for our solid waste system within the county.
Yeah, and I think I'll highlight too as well, the fact that this requirement is not necessarily a county-wide contamination benchmark with penalties or fines or anything for not meeting that. It's really the first step, at least, that Ecology is looking to take to address this just massive shakeup in recycling that occurred starting around 2018, and looking at ways to begin addressing that. And so, like I said, largely the crop in particular is just an effort to start looking at that issue in the county. So, I would say we really worked pretty carefully with the Solid Waste Advisory Committee to come up with actions that they felt were feasible for the county to begin addressing the issue. Like I said, a lot of it is just identifying what those contaminants may be and, starting to evaluate the effectiveness of different strategies and exploring different contamination reduction measures without necessarily committing to hitting certain metrics year over year that carry penalties if missed. But I can certainly understand, the sentiment around these further, requirements. And
So we can
it just kind of reminds me a little bit of, I think it was an anecdote that Arn shared with us about being aware of the camel sticking its nose underneath the tent. Because it sounds like we're headed in an area that is going to drive costs up. You go anywhere else where they do at-home separation of recyclables, and they're paying significantly higher costs for collection. But then we don't bill the customer.
And we
The
can certainly
cities-
highlight the CHOP area and send it out to you guys separately and the schedule on that and just what the committee came up with for better understanding.
But I do agree with the chairman. It doesn't matter if we have questions or concerns. We have to adopt it. Besides, the cities already have adopted it. And they're the ones that have to build the
That's
customers.
the order, wasn't. The order, the cities are first, the counties last. It wasn't because of preference.
Commissioner Mortensen?
Yeah, there, if I could read my notes, I've got a lot of questions. So I'll probably only have half as many questions because my notes are obscure. So you introduced that this plan was first developed in 2012. It elapsed in 2017, and we've been operating for 6 years without a plan. That sounds to me like a plan right there in itself.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I understand the impetus for trying to do a plan, which may answer a little bit of that discussion is like, why ask a question? Officer, may I park here? And you've been parked there for days and don't ask. Anyhow.
Yeah. With the ecology in the room, that I think that was one of the reasons it lasted as long as it did because of the part managers they went through, but also they knew we were working on it from the day one in 2018 when we started it back up. The redo the plan, they were in the room from that point forward. So the officer knew we were parking there the whole time.
So this plan has been in the makings for 5
Since-
years?
Yes.
I think it's only a quarter done then. Yeah. So it'll take another 15 years before we go. Okay, and then just a statement that Brian made, which is the SWAC is advisory. It doesn't give us directions that we must follow. It just gives us suggestions. And there was a sentence you used that made me think, no, I don't think he means it that way. It's really interesting to me that there's a landfill, there's the county policy about, there's a landfill as a business, and I tend to view it as a business that's fortuitously is being operated very nicely and owned by the county. And then there's just a general solid waste policy requirement that all counties have to have. That's what we're taking a look at here, isn't it? This has no handle on our landfill.
Yes, I should have said that at the beginning. I think Sean even mentioned to me morning, I should have started that way. This plan is for the county-wide management plan for solid waste. Doesn't really talk about the operations at the headquarters landfill we do that separately.
So it wouldn't matter if we were shipping this over Eastern Washington or
We would still have to
still
have
have a
one.
plan.
Yeah. So, I think you already answered this, when the municipalities have already seen this and approved it.
Yes, all the cities have seen this. We had a few small changes from a few of the cities and that was it.
I'm interested just in the mechanics of it, if, say, Kalama decided they didn't want to approve it, what does that mean to us?
So at some point, we'd have to make the decision of if we wanted the opposing city to remain in the group or if we wanted to ask them to create their own plan.
Could you speak more?
Yeah, so at that point in time, we'd have to make the decision if we'd want that city to continue to participate in this plan with us, or if we'd ask them to create their own plan if their changes were unacceptable.
Okay, so they do have an option. They can do their own or join in. Okay, thank you. And then I think, Mike, you said you were gonna do that. Is there anything in this plan about which you have lost some sleep? And I'd like to know what that might be, because 200 pages of bureaucracy is a little too foreboding for me.
It's probably what we're talking about the most was the recycling side of it and curbside recycling, what's going to happen in the future. That's probably the biggest section for me. And that's why I think we should highlight and bring that back to you and say, this is what the schedule looks like. You know, if we're good, what data we're looking to collect and what we're looking forward to in the next 5 to 10 years.
Okay, so Commissioner Weber mentioned that the public should be aware that prices might come up. The public thinks recycling is free. And I think
yeah,
in
it's
generally, recycling is not even cost effective in a holistic picture. But in this case, do we have protections in there so that I guess there can't be any forget my question.
You want to hit this from the, you know, you've been working with Olympia about what we've been excluded from.
And to first hit on the recycling topic, each city determines their level if they're going to do curbside. And so, of course, that's outside of our control. We provide certain rural recycling drop-off sites throughout the county, and that's through our waste control contract. And so we're pretty stable on that side.
If I could interrupt you. So this plan has 6 members in it, the 5 municipalities and the county. The city of Longview is not at the mercy of the city of Kelso or Kalama, right? So if Kalama does something weird, Longview is not responsible, and the county is not responsible.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
And then to kind of go back onto the compost or the organic side, we've been going through that, working through that with Ecology to see what kind of effects that could have on our county. A few weeks ago, we saw the compost procurement policy that came through.
Right.
That was from that.
That doesn't mean we liked it.
That's correct. Yeah. The other side of it is the requirements for us to collect organics. And we've been exempted from that from our current county size. But you never know what they're going to do in 5, 10 years down the road.
Okay, thank you.
That makes me ask, what size put you under that?
I believe it's 50,000 population, excluding the cities and their urban growth areas.
Oh, so it'd just be county area would have to be 50,000 or above.
Correct.
Okay.
And I think we're at what, about 45% of the urban area or population is county.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The way
I think
that
you're about right.
the way that Ecology calculated it included some of the areas outside of the city with the city. So we're a little bit lower than that.
You didn't want a straightforward answer, did you?
Well, I think
Thank you.
we're just about due for the state's latest estimates on population. They parse it out according to their research.
Okay, any other questions?
The one company that I'm most aware of that collects recyclables that aren't mixed is NORPAC. And their processing of waste papers includes a huge amount of glass and particularly glass and plastics that they can't process. So did their representative at all participate in addressing that whole recycling issue that is confronting them? I'm not even sure what they do with those with the waste that they separate out from the paper. And they've got this incredible mechanical process that almost defies explanation, but you know, unmixed recyclables go in one end and pulp and glass and plastic come out the other end. I remember those huge piles at the plant site when we were there visiting them at the opening. But did they have any particular insights on solutions?
I don't know if they had any particular insights into it. We do have two of the large industry mills on the SWAC committee, and so they were participating in the group.
Just not West Rock, right? West Rock didn't send her up.
I believe you're correct.
That was Wayne's. That's, yeah, okay. I think, yeah, plastics and glass remain the imponderables, the toughest part of the picture, I think.
So we'll let you guys do some light reading. No, I'll give you some more updates on the CHOP side of it. And then we'll give you, maybe next Monday, have a chance to review it a
Mike.
bit more.
What makes you think we haven't already done that?
I'm sorry, I doubted you.
Yeah, that'd be great. Mike.
And we'll,
Thank
we'll
you.
put it on the agenda maybe in a couple of weeks, but give you some more time to review and ask questions along the way. So Brian, I appreciate your help today.
Yeah, Brian, thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. And it sounds like, Mike and Sean, we can follow up, but that I will be attending in person next week for the follow-up meeting. So looking forward to seeing everyone then.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all.
I know we're at miscellaneous, but Jessica, I think you had a couple things. Or I see perform. In 5 minutes for each one. Okay, we will adjourn to those two sessions. Since she wasn't. We're back from an executive session. No decisions were made. So.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Jessica Warren, Human Resources. I have a couple requests. The first come from the office, the prosecuting attorney's office. He would like to start an applicant up to step 4. He comes with experience. He's actually a previous employee that would be returning to the county.
Do you need a motion for that or just a head nod?
Just approval, yeah.
Head nod?
I don't
And-
believe I need a motion.
Okay,
Second item,
That's right. Mhm.
oh, okay.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Second item also comes from the prosecuting attorney's office. Dakota Black in his office is a deputy prosecuting attorney, and he would like to move him to step 4. He's currently at step 3.
I'm good with it.
It's the only other background on that I can provide would be this is really only 6 months. It's kind of a 6 months ahead of schedule.
Yeah, he would be receiving his step increase in January, and now he'll be receiving it June 1st. Next items come from building and planning. Jason Lugo's an associate planner, and he's currently at step 6, and the department would like to move him to a step 7. This would also be something that he would receive about 6 months before he would normally receive it.
Okay,
That's good.
Okay, thank you. And then she would like to do a salary reclassification for her planning manager. He's currently at position 580, and she'd like to move him to 590, step 4.
I'm good.
And then a request to fill. The current permit specialist in building and planning has been promoted to an assistant planner. So they would like to refill her position of permit specialist.
I'm good with that too.
Okay,
Thank you, commissioners. That's all I have.
One more HR item, Commissioners, Tracy Jackson, Building and Planning. I'd like to request that Jessica Warren, our Human Resources Director, go from step 1 to step 3, effective 6/1 of 2023.
I like it.
Thank you.
I like it a
Commissioners.
lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
any other, we have about 15 minutes before our closed grievance, if there's any other miscellaneous. I see none. Is that a separate meeting from this? We would, I know it, but what I would rely on your expertise. Can this work session be closed or does it be recessed?
The way we've had it in the past is this ends and.
So
that's a
we
totally
can adjourn
independent-
this and
Yeah.
that's a separate deal. Okay. See no miscellaneous. I don't see any. I mean, last check for hands. I don't see any. Yeah. Public comment? Any? Okay. We'll adjourn this meeting. Thank you.